Yes, it's Bobby. Yes, it's Tito. Yes, it's Bodie. If you're watching on YouTube, see that handsome fellow in the middle, Chris McNeil. Reflog_18 on Twitter. Cleveland media sports legend. Chris McNeil, you have to be on cloud nine right now after watching your Browns and what Shadur Sanders did, right?
Wow, what an intro. Thank you, Tito.
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, hope springs eternal here for the Cleveland Browns right now. After Friday night, you had Shedeur coming in with his entourage, as people were saying, really, it was just his teammates, right? That was Tony Brown there with him, with the music, and then he balls out and leaves everybody in Cleveland right now, I think, pretty optimistic about what we might have in a fifth round pick.
I mean, was that best case scenario for the Browns? I know some people they've said, what's the best case scenario going forward? 2-15 and draft their quarterback. I go, really? If one of the guys could work out, that would be ideal because then you have two picks that you wouldn't have to waste again on another quarterback. And I know he started a little slow, picked it up. I always say, Chris, that you can never. I can't tell you if a guy's going to be great off preseason, but if they struggle a lot, it's highly concerning because you're not seeing a whole lot of coverages. But it felt like it was more or less best case scenario for Shedeur and Browns fans.
Yeah, and it seemed like, and Bobby, you know this from preseason, him getting in and out of the huddle, just the little things that he was doing, he didn't struggle with. I remember back in the day when you had guys on this Browns roster like Johnny Manziel, right? I remember that very first game. He actually did a scrimmage, and it was at Akron Stadium, and I went to it. And he could not get the guys in and out of the huddle. It seemed like every single play he was making one read and then running out of bounds. You didn't see any of that with Shadur Sanders. You saw some decisive moves back there from in the pocket. He was moving in the pocket. He was making his reads. He did run the ball, and he was effective when he ran. And then when he passed, you saw a couple of touchdowns, no interceptions. So, hey, everybody's saying, hey, he's playing against bag boys right now. He was also throwing to bag boys who might be working at Kroger next week. So that can't be lost either. So it's a little bit of optimism, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for hope here in Cleveland. We got six quarterbacks right now, gentlemen, that are on our roster. So it would be great if we could find something that's right here, right now, because we've got our pick next year, and then we've also got Jacksonville's pick. So do we need to spend those on a quarterback? I think chances are we will. But boy, it would be great to know that we've got somebody right now who may be the franchise quarterback, and then maybe we draft another quarterback, have a couple going forward. But man, it'd be nice to have that bird in hand.
Chris McNeil joined us, reflog_18 on Twitter. Make sure you check him out there. And I'm curious, it feels like the worst case scenario for the Browns this season is to be like 5-12 or 6-11. And not have the quarterback answer. If you're if you're a Browns fan, I'd much rather be 3-14 or 11-6, as opposed to in the middle there. And but you want to have a definite decision on if you have your quarterback or not, right?
Yeah, you don't want to end up in no man's land, right? You end up where the Steelers were for years and years now, where you're kind of right in the middle, so you're not drafting very high and you're not getting very far in the playoffs. For the Browns, we're not a playoff team, obviously. Right now, Vegas has got us at 5.5 wins going into the season. So ideally, you find your quarterback, get a little bit of mojo. Maybe you end up going over that number, but you've got your quarterback, or you end up just totally bottoming out. You end up with that top pick in the NFL draft, and then you're in good shape. Once again, though, you've also got that Jacksonville pick that's looming out there. So, as much of a Browns fan as I am, I also am rooting against Jacksonville all year long. I want to see them get that number one pick overall. So, that gives you a little bit of leeway if you're a Browns fan to say, okay, I want us to win, and we can end up hitting that 6, 7, 8 wins and be okay if Jacksonville on the other side gets that number one pick and is able to bring that boat into dock for us.
Is there anyone else out there? Any other rookies that you've been excited about?
Well, Carson Schwessinger, he looked really good. Our second round pick, that linebacker out of UCLA. When you have Jordan Hicks, our starting middle linebacker this year, go 2 days into training camp and say, you know what? That's it. I'm done. I'm retiring. You know you're going to have holes in that linebacking crew. On top of that, you have JOK. You won't have him again this season. Hopefully, everything's progressing with him. But that leaves you with a couple of big holes. This guy was drafted to be the guy who may be wearing the green dot for us this season. So he's looked at as a rookie to take on some big leadership. He had something like 4 tackles. He was in on a total of 6. So he looks like a guy who might be pretty darn good for us, looking pretty good in that first preseason game.
He is Chris McNeil, Big Play Cleveland Show, joining us here on Morning Juice. And when you look at the Browns running back situation, obviously what's going on with Quinshon Judkins is still very much unresolved and not in camp yet. I think it's the only draft pick out of all the draft picks that have not signed yet. Are you a believer in Jerome Ford?
We didn't get to see him in that first preseason game, but I've liked what we've seen out of him here in the past couple of seasons. I'll be interested to see what Dylan Sampson can do. Obviously, Ohio State fans, we see a little bit of him in his time there at Tennessee. But Dylan Sampson is one of those guys who may be able to step up for us as a rookie and do something. We didn't see much of him at all there in the preseason game, but it'll be kind of a running back by committee. I think you're going to see Jerome Ford. You're going to see some of the young guys also mixed in this season.
I heard you guys having this conversation earlier. This week coming into the weekend on the show on the Nick Chubb conversation. Are you cheering for Nick Chubb in Houston to have a successful year?
Absolutely. I mean, he was one of the few guys on this team, Bobby, who you could root for as a fan, right? You always had Nick Chubb. You had that guy who would just go out there, lunch pail style. He would do his work. He'd be quiet in the locker room. You never heard a negative thing from him. And he just produced for this team for years. So it hurt us very much as a fan to see him move on. You know the way the NFL is. The NFL is a business. You realize that he's been hurt. He's aging. So it makes sense to all those Ivy League guys that we've got in our front office to get rid of this guy. But from a fan's perspective, boy, that hurts to see that heart and soul of that offense move on for us. So I'd like to see him do well in Texas. Being the Cleveland fan I am, I could see him just having some kind of a fantastic season. I know early results say that he's not having a great camp down there and may be washed, but who knows, Bobby? Being a Cleveland fan for as long as I am, you come to expect that once these guys move on, they're going to do something against you, or they're going to do something where people are going to go back and go, the Cleveland Browns quit on this guy. I don't know what the heck they were thinking,
Do you think Kevin Stefanski will be the next Browns coach to win a playoff game?
Oh, that's a good question. I think they're pretty committed right now to Kevin Stefanski. I think the organization right now has their sights set on moving into Brook Park and being ready to go. And that's a few years off. So right now, everything that they're doing, whether it's tanking, whether it's trying to figure out what they've got on this roster, whether to figure out what they've got in their coaching room as well, is all geared for a few years from now. So I don't think anything that happens this year is going to be a referendum on Kevin Stefanski. I think they're pretty committed to the guy. I think they're pretty committed to Andrew Berry. I think much to the chagrin of a lot of fans right now, because you look at Andrew Berry, you look at his drafts, they have not been very good at all, very underwhelming. And so it's got a lot of fans very upset right now. He's really got to start producing. And the same thing with Stefanski. So I think they're going to give him enough rope that I think that he will eventually get back to the playoffs. The question right now is going to be, with us closing the old stadium, are the Cleveland Browns ever going to host a game at their current stadium? Because they have never hosted a playoff game there in their existence. And now you've only got a few years left to do it. And I don't know if that's going to happen. 20 years since 1999, that stadium's been open, never, ever hosted a playoff game. And it doesn't look like one's on the horizon, guys.
Hosted a crew game once, though, didn't they?
They sure did. They took it from Columbus, right? Here this last year.
I guess the question is how many stadiums have been opened and closed without ever hosting a playoff game? Like in the country, because it's got to be a short list, and the list might be one.
Yeah. And the distinction, the dubious distinction of being Cleveland Brown Stadium, that's just perfect for us, right? I mean, we
Gosh.
had an 0-16 parade, which I know very well, right? I hosted
Yes.
that thing up there. For that thing to close without actually seeing a playoff game, that would just be amazing and just somehow poetic, guys. It's unfortunate as a Browns fan. It's not something you root for, but these things just happen.
Are you excited about the move?
I wouldn't say excited about the move. I'm a season ticket holder, so I'm not real excited about the pricing, to be honest with you. I know that the ticket prices are going to go up. You're going to be bringing back PSLs, and then parking prices, gentlemen, are going to go through the roof. I really anticipate that because you're giving control of the ownership group of all of that parking, and so those prices are going to go up. Bobby's very familiar with Jerry World down
Mm.
there in Dallas, and I think they're trying to create that in Brook Park, Ohio, of all places, right there by the airport. So I am not a huge fan of my ticket prices going up and to be paying more out of pocket to go to this stadium. But, we'll be able to host Taylor Swift. Maybe we'll have some pretty cool concerts up there. That's going to be fun. But for the average ticket holder, I don't know that you got to be that excited about your prices going up.
All right. It is Labor Day, and we look at the Browns roster. What are the quarterback names that appear?
Well, I think you definitely got Dylan Gabriel. I think you still have Shedeur for sure, especially based upon what he's done in camp and now what he's done in that preseason game. I think that they're pretty invested in Kenny Pickett, and I also think they're pretty invested right now in Joe Flacco. So I think they carry all four of those guys, unless they can swing a deal for either Flacco or for Kenny Pickett, which may or may not happen. We'll see. It's kind of interesting the order of the way that these guys have come onto the roster because it's a little different. I think the fans perceive that Shadeur's number one out of the rookies and Joe Flacco's number one out of the veterans, whereas the organization. Obviously, Dylan Gabriel was picked ahead of Shedeur Sanders, so they think highly of him. And then Kenny Pickett was picked and brought in here before Joe Flacco was. So the organization clearly is high on those two guys, where I think the fans are higher on the other two.
We'll get you out of here on this one, Chris. Your Guardians. Half game out of the wild card
Yes.
spot now. They've been on fire lately.
Yes.
Are you
They have.
are you going to purchase postseason tickets in advance? Do you think the guards make the charge and get there?
Hope springs eternal, right? What did we do at the trade deadline? We lost two of our pitchers due to gambling and didn't do anything else, right? And then we went on this run. Unfortunately, we lose to the White Sox yesterday. We've got the Marlins coming up. We've got Atlanta coming up. Guys, we've had the best bullpen in baseball now for a little while.
You can
That
bet
was
on it.
really our ticket to success last year. And we didn't have that for this season. All of a sudden, they've been catching fire. We've got the young guys like CJ Kafis, who's coming up, starting to hit a little bit. Kyle Manzardo starting to hit. Jose's been in a little bit of a slump that no one's noticed. So if he starts hitting a little bit, who knows? It may be a chance for us to get that wild card or even catch the Tigers. The Tigers have been flaming here lately. So who knows? I hope springs eternal, and I'm hoping that our guards can kind of pull out a magical run here in the second half. And I think it's quite honestly pretty possible.
Just so the Morning Juice listeners know, Chris appeared on the Shark video, and also he's the one who got Bernie Kosar, which moves Shark very much. So I appreciate all your help with that, Chris. Thank you so much. Reflog _18. Chris McNeil joins us, Big Play Sports Cleveland show. Thanks for the time, Chris. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Tito. Thanks, Bobby. See you guys.
All right.